December 13th, 2025, Chapter 7.11, Appendix. Today, we're going to read about Sīlabbata-parāmāsa. This is clinging to rites and rituals. And the key aspects of clinging to moral precepts and observances, the sole path to salvation rather than as tools. Now, the true aim of Dhamma practice includes ethical conduct. It's the fading away from greed and grasping or attachment, longing for, leading to nibbita, not just purification through rules. In basic terminology, people hold on to rules and rituals and observances without realizing that they're losing the true meaning of the purpose, that these rules and observances are just tools to get to the goal. And the goal is to eliminate your greed, hatred, and delusion, and realize awakening. So Appendix 7.11, Appendix 1, Sīlabbata-parāmāsa, page 794, Buddhadhamma. Sīlabbata-parāmāsa is one of the most misunderstood of the 10 fetters. In the Sutta Nipata, Gautama Buddha often talks about the wrong view of certain people who believe that purity is gained solely by following moral precepts and religious practices. The term purity, suti, here refers to the goal of religious life, equivalent to liberation, vimukti. This wrong view may manifest in observing precepts and practices in order to go to either heaven, as revealed in this common passage from the suttas. He has such a view as this: by this moral precepts or austerity or asceticism or celibate life, I shall become some kind of God or divine being. Noble disciples, the enlightened ones, and true sages do not hold this view. It says, I have to let go of moral precepts and religious practices. There are many passages in the Mahadesana, Kula Nidesana, explaining this attachment to the precepts and observances. For example, some Brahmins and ascetics equate purity with morality. They believe that purity, immaculateness, liberation, deliverance, and freedom solely from moral precepts, abstinence, restraint, and obedience. Some Brahmins and ascetics equate purity with religious austerities. They observe the practice of behaving like elephants, like horses, like cows. They observe rites of Brahma, Devatas, of praying to the four directions. This explanation helps clarify the definition of Sīlabbata-parāmāsa from the Buddhadhamma. Sīlabbata-parāmāsa is the manner of view and belief of ascetics and Brahmins outside of this Dhamma Vinaya. Purity stems from keeping moral precepts and austerities. The phrase outside of this Dhamma Vinaya can lead some people to wrongly understand the Sīlabbata-parāmāsa is found only in other religions. This passage from the Buddhadhamma is merely an example. It can be reworded as beliefs like those of other non-Buddhist ascetics and Brahmins, like Hindus or Jains. In fact, one need not add these words other or outside at all. The passage in Sutta Nipata, Mahadesana, or commentaries do not use these words. For if a person clings, attaches to this wrong view, even if one is a Buddhist, one is outside. Besides being in deep-rooted misunderstanding, this blind faith in moral precepts and religious practices reveals an inherent craving. The example to wish to go to a destination, a heaven, or certain realms. Sīlabbata-parāmāsa is composed of words sila, morality, moral precepts. Vata is austerity, religious practice. And paramasa is extreme attachment. The words sila and vata are explained in the Buddhadhamma and defined above. The Buddhadhamma elaborates by saying that some things are both sila and vata, while others are vata but not sila. For example, in the Bhikkhu discipline, in the Vinaya, those aspects having to do with self-control, samyama and sanama, restraint, moral integrity, are sila. Those aspects having to do with the vows or observances is vata. Examples of practices that are vata but not sila are ascetic practices. Vows to live in the forest, eat only food gathered on alms round, wearing ragged robes. In regard to monks of other traditions who keep, for example, the dog practice, in order to be reborn in heaven, the commentaries say that sila is the behavior mimicking dogs, and vata the particular routines of such practice. In regard to Buddhists, an example of sila is keeping the 5 precepts, and of vata is keeping the ecstatic practices. In regard to bhikkhus, the commentaries occasionally say that the 4 kinds of pure morality, parisuddhi sila, or sila of the 13 ecstatic practices, are vata. Parāmāsa is sometimes translated as cares or fondo, but its generally meaning in the Tipitaka Pali Canon is seize or take hold. A monk grabs hold of a layman, Dikaku holds the king of Kasi's head to kill him. The Buddha Gautama is not attached to what he knows. One should not take that which is not freely given. Seize rods and swords to fight. The definition of cares probably comes from the Jataka stories, describing the birth of Suvana Samba, Kusa, and Mandava, where a holy man touches the mother's navels. Perhaps it is also influenced by the Vinaya, which defines paramasa sanya as stroke or to rub. Ito sito sha shankapana. The principal meaning of paramasa, however, is clearly defined as sapavam attikam tiwa parato amasatiti paramaso, meaning to grasp at, excel, and deviate from reality. One overreaches by exceeding or distorting the truth, making more of something that it actually is. For example, one may mistakenly believe something to be permanent, which is in fact fleeting, impermanent. Precepts and religious practices are established as foundation for spiritual development. But one may miss the point and believe that liberation comes merely from keeping these rules and practices. Sīlabbata-parāmāsa is a belief or view, ditti. One may ask how this fetter is distinct from the first fetter, sakkaya ditti. One is also a belief. The commentaries explain that sakkaya ditti, the firm belief in atta, the self, is a view inherent to most people and does not require logical reasoning or transmission from others. Sīlabbata-parāmāsa has external or social content. It is the relation to what others consider right and wrong, conduct, because it pertains to spiritual practice. The commentaries thus designate Sīlabbata-parāmāsa under the category of self-mortification, atta Kilamatanu yoga, one of the 2 extremes to be avoided by Buddhists in order to walk the middle way. Paramasa is often found in the past particle from form of paramata, touch or grasp. It has the meaning of defiled or tainted. Something is tainted because it has been smeared by craving. One keeps rules and precepts to gain a reward, wealth, fame, praise, bliss, etc., or to be reborn in whatever state one's region professes. Pure morality is called aparamata. It is not stained by craving. One follows moral standards with wisdom and independence. One is not enslaved to craving and fixed views. This is Sila of Asotapanā, of stream enterers. A further consequence of this attachment to rules and practices is to debate between people about who is right and wrong. It is to generate arrogance and conceit, looking down on those who are deemed less strict or less ethical. Sīlabbata-parāmāsa results from people unquestioningly following others, a symptom of blind leading the blind. Some people see rules and practices as sacred and magical rites or ceremonies. Others follow the rules unwillingly, seeing them as arbitrary commandments. They do not see the harm in transgressing the rules, nor do they see the benefit of restraint. Others again seek good luck, sensual pleasures by observing these rules and practices. Keeping moral precepts and observing religious duties correctly is not Sīlabbata-parāmāsa. One knows their true purpose, that they should be used for spiritual training, as tools, as the basis for concentration, as tools for peace and simplicity, as tools to promote goodness in society. One sees clearly the harm in oppressing of others. One follows moral precepts, willing by having insight into their benefits, feeling shame and wrongdoing, hiri otapa, generating enthusiasm for the good. Eventually, true moral conduct becomes automatic and natural. No training or compulsion is required because the defilements that cause evil are gone. Ahimsa, nonviolence, is one of the 6 devotions practiced by arihats, not because they cling to the rules and practices, because they are free from greed, hatred, and delusion. At first, moral behavior is normal behavior because of habit and strength of one's determination. Later, moral behavior is normal behavior because the causes for evil and unwholesomeness have been eliminated. Someone who keeps moral precepts correctly is called Sīlabbata-parāmāsa, endowed with ethics, or Sīlabbata-sampanna, perfect in morality. To say that purity is gained by moral precepts is inaccurate, but to say purity is gained without moral precepts is also inaccurate. Religious observances and ceremonies may not be a required part of spiritual practice, especially for the laity. But pure aparamata morality, not delivered from truth and unblemished by craving, is an essential basis for liberation. Here is a way of measuring conduct. If by keeping precepts and religious practices, akusala qualities, unwholesome qualities, increase with wholesome qualities wane, then the conduct is incorrect. But if wholesome qualities increase and unwholesome qualities wane, that conduct will bear good fruit. As long as one is unawakened, papuchana, there will be some degree of clinging, upatana, to the mistaken application of sila, moral precepts, and religious practices, commensurate with one's sharing of craving, micha, titi, tanha, and moha, delusion. Dosa and lopa. At least one will need to check and counter certain impulses. For Sotapanna's coarse defilements have been quarreled, and they have thus called perfect in moral conduct. They uphold rules and observance in just the right way, just as tools, neither too laxly nor too strictly.